Hello there. Welcome back to the CardWard Podcast. Jaffer.
And John, the SaltiestGaijin himself. Of course, we want to thank you for taking the time out of your Memorial Day holiday to take a listen to our podcast. And of course, if you're listening after, we appreciate you too.
We actually asked all of you guys for like feedback, and those that watch like in my Discord and just on throughout my streams and stuff. Um, and we got a lot of feedback of like things we can improve on, and the quality of the last recording or podcast wasn't at the best. That's on me. I'm learning how to edit better. Like I'm new to podcast things. It was a little microphone kind of issue, so we got that fixed before we started recording today as well, just to make sure everything was fine. So appreciate the feedback, and if you ever any other feedback in the future, feel free to let us know.
And do not hesitate to let us know what you think we can do better as well. Happy to read through it all and do what we can to improve the podcast.
Yeah, like we got like basically like a little book by Discord of feedback,
did.
and we
We
really
did.
do appreciate that. Like sometimes people feel bad telling us like things that they want to see improved. Don't feel bad.
People on the internet don't want to be mean to us. That's crazy. We must be special. But yeah, but beyond the podcast, though, we've had quite the busy month. Of course, I was at NRG Indianapolis, which was a team trios and a modern event. It was definitely an interesting weekend. We did have one teammate do very well in the modern portion. Well, actually, two teammates, both going X and two, which was so it was an interesting weekend, especially because one of them was playing Heliod combo, which is not exactly a deck people would expect coming, but
And this is for John's
team fanny pack.
team fanny pack. I'm not a part of that. I travel with them occasionally.
Yes, yeah,
Bunch
you're
of
part of the fanny
awesome
pack
people.
extended universe, as we say.
Part
The
of the
fanny
fanny
pack
pack
and
universes
friends.
beyond.
Yeah, universes beyond. Yes, of course. And you've also had a pretty eventful month, right?
Yeah, I think it was like probably a week after we recorded the last episode, or may have been a week.
Mhm.
Went to an RCQ. I kind of forgot what's happening until like 2 days before, and um, I qualified for not Dallas, Washington D.C. Um, so I played Rakdos Sacrifice, and everybody keeps mentioning how terrible of a deck that is. It is not a terrible deck. Vampires did not kill it, but
It's funny. I was getting similar feedback about Amulet Titan the weekend I qualified playing an ReCQ. Everybody kept telling me it was a bad deck choice for the weekend, but I don't know. I went 5-0 in a single Elim event, so.
you just have to have the reps in with like if it's like a deck that you're used to, and like if in general you just have to have practice in with
Mhm.
it. Like it felt like for a little bit that Rakdos Sac was kind of like pushed out of the format because
Yeah.
of one single card.
We're gonna move on to our first topic.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking kind of sunsetting Outlaws at Thunder Junction Standard, and talking a little bit about the upcoming RC and the RCs that just happened here over the weekend. So definitely got. I think we've got a lot to talk about because we've been doing a lot of standard play testing. So.
Oh yeah, we definitely have. I've had John on my streams like I think almost once a week, almost for the past month,
Been on a lot more than usual.
which has been fun. It definitely has been fun. But
Absolutely.
we can talk more about that once we're probably done talking about the past RC that just happened. Hey there, this is Jaffer after post recording and in the middle of editing. So just a heads up, we tried getting the audio to work better on this. We thought we did, but for some reason the recording is corrupted somehow. We actually lost a significant amount of our episode of about spoilers today, previews. So we're very sorry about that. Um, so if for the content that you are going to hear, I hope that you do enjoy it. For some reason, the audio on my side is a little bit quieter still, even though we did adjust it. I went through and actually turned myself up through the editing process to try to make it sound better so you can understand me more. So I am sorry about that. So in the future, after you're probably done hearing this whole episode, if we have the time, we might go back and re-record our talk on the MH3 cards, of the cards we chose to talk about if we have the time. We can't make any promises, but I hope you understand. So thank you for listening to the episode today, or whenever you listen to it. And yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. Okay, and we were gonna take a peek at some of the RCs, just kind of briefly talk about those. We were trying to find some more data on like the Japan RC, and we were kind of going through quite a bit of things, and we just couldn't find anything about like the. I couldn't find the Melee page. It's probably out there, but we just couldn't find it while we were looking. We did find a day two meta breakdown that went through Google Translate. That was a little funny. Um,
I had a lot going for it
um, so Boros Convoke. There's like 13 players. Um,
in the day 2 metagame,
yeah.
which is
Um,
a pretty impressive number given that there was a total of 64 players in day 2. So it's like, it means it had a pretty standout day 1 to convert. Because I can't imagine, that there was, say, a ton of like more than that. So interesting to see. Without seeing the day 1 metagame, it's also hard to gauge.
yeah.
We don't have like those conversion rates like we do for some of like the European RC, for example. Um,
I was surprised to
yeah.
see that there's less Golgari than the Blue Eye Control deck. I would expect more Golgari than Blue Eye Control.
Well, I feel like again these are day 2 metagames, so
Yeah.
like it could also just come down to like the day 1 metagame was just more favorable to Azorius than it was to like Golgari. Because like as an example, like say like Analyst is also up there as it was one of the better performing decks, and like Golgari, bad Analyst matchup, bad Domain Ran matchup too. Control, uh, still not a slam dunk, but it's a lot better. And it's close to 50-50 against Analyst, and it's about the same with Domain. So it's like it could just be that the metagame was just positioned in a way that Golgari was not the best thing to be doing here. But Azorius just happened to line up better. Because I imagine as far as like overall play rates, it was probably similar. Not drastically different than
Yeah.
the day 1. But these are the day 2 metagames, so it's hard to really say.
Yeah. I do my takeaway looking at this metagame day 2 for the Japan RC. I want everybody to start calling domain ramp printing lamp.
Yes. I want Bant Toxic to be known as Bunt Toxicity. Um, and Boros Muster.
Yeah.
I'm also here for that. But
Um,
yeah, no, nothing too shocking. I mean, we're pretty way late into the Outlaws format. Hence we'll be sort of sunsetting it for terms of the podcast. This episode, because we're gonna be pretty rapidly approaching rotation here. As well as like just there won't be any big standard tournaments after the next few weeks. They'll just sort of be a lame duck format, so to speak. Um, Moving on though, since we don't have a ton to talk about with Japan, we can talk about though is Brazil. Uh, there we did get we have the Melee page is in English. I think that's why we couldn't find the Japanese one, is that it was in Japanese.
yeah.
Uh, so
Plus
even if we found it, we wouldn't know.
Melee this weekend also has been having a couple issues. It looks like, at least on the tournament page itself, like
Mhm.
it looks a little weird now. But
Yeah, it seems a little strange.
looking at the City Glass Game Showdown, the Brazil RC, their top 8 winner was 4 Color Legends. Second, we got Esper Mid, Moderate Aggro in third, Team Relentless in fourth, Azorius Control in fifth, Boros Convoke in sixth, Boros Convoke in seventh, and Esper Mid in eighth.
Yeah. So again, nothing too shocking. All fairly known quantity decks. So we're not seeing like a breakout weekend, I would say, for anything in particular. One thing that was notable, just comparing this to the Japanese RC, was that the like Boros Convoke getting 2 people into the top 8, while also being like that most represented deck in the Japanese RC on day 2 is kind of interesting. So it might be that it was a good weekend for Convoke players in general. Because even looking at like the top 16, there's some more different decks, but there's more Convoke, more Esper. There's Golgari Domain.
More
So
diverse.
yeah, it's definitely like looking at the bigger picture, even beyond the top 8. Like again, more of the same that we saw in Japan. Did break a little differently because Golgari did make the top 8 here, but it is present in the top 16, which is not a huge difference realistically between a top 8 and top 16 berth. It's like one match win is the difference, but very interesting to see how this metagame broke down. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of standard right now because we're not seeing like analyst not dominating, which is great. Because it is probably the most powerful deck. Like Legends is also like a really powerful deck, but the one is more consistent than the other. And then like Domain is like up there power level wise, just like on proactivity scale. So very interesting to see those decks not dominating this weekend at all. We're seeing the fair half of the metagame doing well. Now let's move on. Let's talk about the biggest RC that happened over the weekend, which was the Legacy European Championship or Legacy European Tour Regional Championship.
It had 807 players in it, and for the top 8, with Melee being weird, there's 2 deck lists we can't see for the top 8. But the winner of the event was Esper Midrange, and that was Golgari in second, Esper in third, and then Force Control fourth, Force Control 6, and Force Convoke in 7th. So that was for the top 8. The meta for this one seemed pretty diverse too, except for like Analyst wasn't played as much this event compared to, or it didn't have a great day 2 conversion, right? For this event.
Well, we'll get into those numbers. I also wanted to point out 8th place was also Boros Convoke. So again, 2 Convoke players making it into the top 8, which is impressive. Again, looks like it was a good weekend for Convoke. So that'll be something to take into consideration going into this weekend set of RFCs because there was even more Convoke in the there's at least one more, and then there's a Bant Toxic player, so 2 Bant Toxic players in the top 16. So it was definitely again we're seeing more of the same. Here we definitely saw like the A Bant Toxic showing up and doing well in the largest RC that happened, which is surprising. A lot more Golgari and Blue White control, which is interesting because those are sort of similar in power level. I would say they're attacking from different angles. But like you mentioned, not a lot of teamer analyst, which I think a lot of people, including myself, were thinking that was probably going to end up being one of the better decks, but only 7 copies that I could see. I'm sorry, I totally bit blanked. There's at least 25 copies. Looks like 108 is what we had.
Okay.
Without going through this, Melee isn't giving me the bulk data. Just doing the math backwards here. Which is, okay, so it was still about 12% of the field, roughly an eighth of the field, which is impressive.
Unexpected, maybe a little bit higher there than that. I guess like going into Dallas, maybe a bit higher than that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's holding a deck like that back is basically just going to come down to whether or not people are willing to put up with playing it. Because like one of my teammates is playing that next weekend, and I know the biggest concern that he has is like like the dexterous task of playing the deck is a lot.
He played at Pioneer FNM, and
Yeah,
I was pretty much dead on board a couple times when I was playing against him, but he did mention how that's like why he was playing at FNM to get reps in. So like I just kind of sat there, let him play it out, and it is a lot in paper compared to like doing it on Arena. It's a lot on Arena still, but you're clicking, you're not physically shuffling and going through and searching for cards.
And then another standout that I noticed, again, Boros Convoke, putting up a looks like 69 copies.
Lol.
Yeah, nice. But having a 34% conversion rate is pretty big. Which is interesting to see because it ended up, like tracking with all the other RCs where we're seeing this sort of heavy Convoke metagame. Uh, or even not like super heavy Convoke metagame, but a heavy day 2 metagame of Convoke. And I'm finding that very interesting to see that being a through line because that's a deck that I know a lot of people sort of have written off. And there's sort of some people have been moving back towards Bant Toxic, which looks like Bant Toxic also was roughly the same 58 copies, with a similar conversion rate of 36%, which is huge. And it looks like as far as like best performing decks, like Analyst was pretty down low for how much converted to day 2, because like looking at it here, it's really not a ton. And then like some of the there's a lot of decks that are like, weren't represented very well, so they have either a really low or really high conversion rate. But out of like the decks that were really well represented, like 5-color Legends, Bant Toxic, and Boros Convoke were all the best performing decks in that order for in day 1 at least. And then to see how that shook out to the top 8, which was that Esper mid-range, which on the weekend had a very, relatively poor conversion rate of only 20%, ended up pretty well, I would say doing extremely well, for putting 2 copies into the top 8, more into the top 16. And then similarly, we saw with Golgari, he had a slightly better conversion rate of 24%, but it also put somebody into the finals and another person into the top 16. So it's like, seeing those numbers, it's like, see, even the decks that didn't do the best on day 1 seem to shake out better in the winners metagame, so to speak, which I find very interesting to see. As far as like representation of these numbers, actually, I'm actually less surprised because Analyst having 108 copies is not shocking to me because I think that is probably the benchmark deck of the format. It's probably the most powerful thing you can be doing. It just sucks to play, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, like I personally don't have any interest in trying playing that Analyst deck. Like some people have asked me on stream, I'm like, hey, why don't you try playing this deck when it was like brand new? I'm like, no, I don't want to do all that land stuff.
I think, talking about all this data, I think it might be good now to maybe transition into more of like the broader picture and not
Yeah.
focus less on the RCs because I definitely think there's a lot to talk about with Standard. So, like just thinking about it, like what I'm seeing out of this, and this is something that I really like about Standard right now, is that the power level bar is like pretty high. We have the 3-year rotation. This is the first year we're going through that, and it's showing because like this large card pool has resulted in some very unique strategies.
We have the most cards in Standard and like ever currently.
Ever.
I believe
Yeah.
it. Like I didn't look into it, but I remember hearing on the Pro Tour, the last Pro Tour, their commentary, they're mentioning it's like over 1,000 cards in Standard right now.
Yes, this is the most cards we have ever had in any Standard format ever because Standard's never been longer than 2 years, but until now. Yeah, we had similar formats like Extended for a while was like a 4-year rotating format. It's from before Modern existed. Just put that in perspective. I'm old. But the big thing is that we're seeing with this 3-year standard, kind of exactly what they said they wanted, which was they wanted the power level to be high. They wanted there to be more unique strategies, like more combo-esque decks, and like Analyst is a combo deck, kind of through and through. It is like it's like a ramp deck. It's not the kind of combo that instantly wins the game, but it's just like it's got this engine.
Yeah,
That's
like
just really powerful.
like
And
it's any combo deck. Like it sets up, and then it just at some point it could turn into I win the game off the top of my deck.
exactly. And it's a deck that is utilizing cards from all the way back in New Capenna with the sack lands, and as new as because this deck didn't exist until Murders, which
Mhm.
is the second to last set before Capenna rotates. So
And
it's very
when's
interesting to see that. And then also it got a ton of upgrades with Outlaws at Thunder Junction.
oh yeah,
Like, so I love the deck conceptually. Um, Same with like Domain. Like Domain's another like this deck would not have existed if rotation had happened like normal. And it's another deck that's been getting tools almost every set to like improve itself. So it's a very like again high power level, very proactive deck. But even like looking at like Esper, Golgari, Legends is another deck that's similar to Analyst in that way. Like every deck is very powerful, and we're at a point where like the mana bases are good. Decks have so many card choices that everything's customizable. Like you looking at one Golgari bit deck to another, you could see 10 different cards in each of those decks, which is for standard wild.
Yeah. I
It's not really like, a 5 card differential was the usual you could see at most in like especially this late into a standard format.
Yeah, with me being a fan of like Pioneer, like I like having that middle ground power level between modern and standard. I've been
Mhm.
enjoying standard a lot with how many cards are in the format. Like I'm sure there's decks out there that are not going to get discovered before rotation happens.
Yeah, I think there is a good amount of because there's just so many powerful cards. And what it makes me really excited for is when now it feels like because we'll have such a large card pool even at the start of rotation, you'll have still 2 years worth of sets plus whatever the new set is. It's gonna still be like the power level will still be relatively high. Uh, but like a lot of like the key players right now are gone with rotation. Esper, Analyst, Domain, Legends. At least as it's built right now, Legends. Because like the mana gets worse for a lot of like especially the 5 color decks. Uh, there's a ton of like relevant cards like Slogurt goes away, Rafine, the Triomes, the Sacklands. So it's like this really fascinating change where it's like we got this large card pool that created all these really powerful decks and like it utilized the entire card pool to do that. And then so rotation's going to kill a lot of decks, but like that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you need to, you know, what is it? Like when farmers like burn certain amounts of crops so that the soil is better for the next planting season. That's how rotation's gonna feel this time when we're just like, oh, okay, there's enough stuff left over from the old metagame that we'll kind of have an idea of at least where to start.
Yeah.
But we're gonna be culling a lot of stuff, and so there's gonna be a lot of room for innovation. So I'm really looking forward to that period of standard, and I think that last chunk of the year will probably be like at least just starting the next standard RCQ round. Like I believe
Uh
that's going to start either right at the end of the year or the start of next year.
yeah, kind of
Forget.
similar to last year, right? We had modern
Yeah.
up until I think a week before Christmas. Then
Yeah.
it was like half midway January, I think was when the standard season started.
Yeah, it's looking like with the timing, I believe it's going to be that modern goes through up like the end of November. So the standard round might start earlier than last year. And it's because there's 3 rounds that are all 12 weeks or so. Like roughly. They're sometimes a little longer. But yeah, which is there's because we don't have an off season for RCQs, which creates it'll always like change when the rounds sort of start for the
Yeah.
most part, which I think they can fix by having like a few weeks in between each round just to like let players have a little breather,
Is
which
it
I think
just
would
like
be
a
a
week
healthy thing.
moment?
It is sometimes, but not all the time. I like it when there is because I like giving RCQ grinders a weekend off
Yeah.
that they can plan for and use and not feel bad that they're not playing in an RCQ or something, or that they're playing in an RCQ and they feel bad that they might be missing out on something else. Now that gives them quality of life to people who take the competitiveness seriously. I will say though, again talking broader standard, I'm really enjoying like the ladder. I'm not sure how about you, like because you play a lot of arena too, and I play both Moto and arena. Like I've actually really enjoyed the ladder more recently because of how many different decks you can play against. I'll play 20 matches in a row and play against maybe the same deck 2 or 3 times.
I do enjoy playing ladder. I enjoy it more than what I did like before current standard probably, like, more than, like,
Mhm.
say, 6 months ago. Um, but, like, at times, like, I'm in, like, it depending on the rank you're in, I feel like your experience can change at that point. Like, I'm in Mythic at the moment,
Mhm.
and but trying to climb in Mythic right now, like, if you're trying to get out of percentages into numbers, it's ridiculously hard at the moment. Like, you
Mhm.
another content creator went, like, uh, I think 12 and 0, and they were still in, like, 98%. They didn't get in the
Yeah.
numbers. But,
Well, that's gonna happen when standard's good, right? Because
yeah,
when standard's good, more people play, and when more
yes.
people play, there'll be more people that you have to compete with, on the ladder.
Yeah, but,
Um
with, where I was going with that though, like, overall, I think everybody's ladder experience might be different. Mine, I enjoy it mostly when I'm going from, for playing it, like, against a more diverse meta. I feel like I enjoy, somewhat mostly more in standard plat to, all the way up to mythic in standard if I'm playing standard. Um,
Mhm.
if we talk about a different format, my experience feels a little different there, but, um,
Oh,
overall,
yeah.
I feel like I play against a pretty diverse meta from standard plat to through diamond into mythic. Once again to mythic, the experience changes a little bit to you're gonna play against usual meta decks that you'd see in, like, tournament,
Mhm.
and to a lot of random stuff you probably would never see in a tournament, and if
Mhm.
you're, say, trying to get some reps into the deck for, like, practice for a tournament, ladder's not the best thing to play, but if it's your next best thing, it could feel a little frustrating at times. But, like, for the most part, overall, it's been a great time. Um,
Yeah.
sometimes wish I could, like, go back a rank and then just climb again, honest, to get a
Sure.
different experience.
Understandable. Yeah, yeah, no, I would also agree. Yeah, because the higher you go, right, the more people will be playing a more fixed set of decks. But even that set of decks is really large.
Oh, yeah.
Um, just like thinking about it, there's probably 10 different decks that you could expect people to be playing, even at the really high ranks. And you might have days where, one deck's a little more represented than others, just, for factors that are beyond your control.
Usually,
Um,
if I run into that, I'm like, my first thing, it's always on stream because that's when I play Arena. My
yeah.
first thought is, okay, which content creator built this?
Yeah, and that does come up a lot, especially on the ladder. Trends come up a lot more, maybe more than the actual metagame. And decks like Analysts just aren't really well represented online in general. Like, I think that's one of the things maybe a lot of people don't take that deck super seriously because of that. Because it can be kind of especially on Moto, it's very hard to play.
Oh, I'd imagine. I think,
Yeah,
Mason
like
was telling
Arena
me about that.
automates a lot of that, but you know,
Mason was telling
the
me, Mason is, one of our friends and one of John's, teammates. Mason was telling me how atrocious it is to play that deck on how many
yeah,
triggers are.
it's bad. You can only automate so many things on MTGO before it still just shaves time off your clock to resolve all this stuff. Um, because you have to like pick the lands out of your deck and all that nonsense. So it's like, yeah, really difficult to play online. So yeah, like which is definitely probably one of that's one of the things I've disliked a little bit about the format right now is that some of the decks are harder to play online than others. Like I like the analyst deck, but like I don't think I could play it a ton online. Like it's a deck that I would happily play in a tournament, but like would not want to play on for an extended period of time online because of that.
Yeah.
Which every format sometimes like formats have decks like that over time. Like Heliod combo back when that was like one of the best decks in modern was not represented well online because of that. Like eggs and KCI combo were the same way. Those style of decks that just are very game action intensive just tend to don't translate well online. And that's, not a new problem, but still one that sort of kind of rears its ugly head from time to time. But why don't we talk RC Dallas a little bit here?
Yeah.
I'm going to be playing in the main event. Sounds like you'll be doing more content creator focused stuff, right?
Yeah, for those that, I've been watching, like, my streams, like, or tune in whenever John's on, like, we've been talking about how I'm gonna be playing LCQ stuff with the deck that we've been testing and stuff, I probably won't be able to do that now. If you are interested in this, if you day two and you have some downtime, or if you don't day two and you're looking for something to do, I will be hosting or I'll be part of a Magic the Gathering meet and greet or get together for content creators. So you can come meet me and other content creators at 11 o'clock on that Sunday. But before that happened, I was going to play some LCQs with the deck that we've been working on.
Yeah.
I might play, like, say, some on-demand standard events on Saturday, probably, or if. But yeah, so we're both gonna be at Dallas. It's gonna be a great time. We're gonna have fun. If you see us, come say hi to us. I'll have stickers to give out. But for what do you think is gonna the RC is gonna look like?
I would, if I had to take a guess, given that Boros Convoke had a good weekend, I could easily see people leaning towards that style of deck or diverting from it entirely. Because like, especially with Bant Toxic also doing well, because like those are two decks that you can pretty much board very similar cards for. Your Path of Perils, your temporary lockdowns, and those style of things. So I could see people maybe deviating a little bit away from that. I think Analyst is still going to be the most powerful thing going into the weekend. So like personally, my teammate Mason and I just did like a 5.5, 6 hour play testing session yesterday, where I threw Golgari mid-range and Azorius control at that deck for just 6 straight hours. And it's hard. That deck's really good. That Analyst deck is very strong. It does have its problems, but it has a surprisingly good Toxic matchup and a surprisingly good Boros Convoke matchup. You would not expect those to be decent matchups, but Ill-Timed Explosion is a really good Magic card. Being able to be like basically a 4-mana Wrath of God effect. It almost is guaranteed, and it's never dead against control either, which is just crazy to me.
And a Virtue's just kind of make that card better because you can buy back something you did eventually.
Yeah, or you discard the Virtue and buy it back later with Shigeki or the Turtle. But yeah, it's I think that if I had to put my best guess on it, that will probably be very similar representation in numbers to Europe, probably like that 10 to 15% range. I think Esper having a good weekend overall and like Golgari will probably make those decks pretty popular. Because I think people just like those decks a lot because they're kind of like, I don't know, they make you feel smart sometimes. Same with Control is in a similar space to those decks, like the sort of like fair decks, as I is what I like to refer to them as in the metagame, where they're not like trying to go under, they're not trying to go over, they're just dogging it out in the mid game. And I think that's totally like awesome. I love seeing decks like that be popular. And if that's the case, though, like Esper has a pretty decent Toxic matchup, pretty decent Convoke matchup, so that'd be one of the reasons to deviate from those decks. Golgari struggles a little bit more there, but it has a much better time against Esper, and as well as Azorius control. So I feel like maybe those blue-white X decks are gonna maybe help push out those more aggressive strategies, and the Golgari decks are gonna try and prey on those. And then everybody's just going to sort of scratch their head as they try to, dog it out with Team or Analyst. And thankfully, Analyst helps push out decks like Domain pretty well. So I like seeing that a bit. So like his Domain kind of crushes all these mid-range decks and struggles against Toxic and Convoke. But, if there's a ton of Esper, then those decks might struggle a bit. But it also comes down to matchups. So it'd be hard to say what's going to, the day 2 metagame will look like. But I think we'll probably see a good bit of Analyst, good bit of Esper, a good bit of Golgari.
Speaking of metagame, the USRC is usually the biggest one out of all of them.
Yes. We're looking at about 1,800 to 2,000 players.
That's what I was going to ask.
They capped the event at 2,000, but that's also to add a buffer for LCQ winners.
Okay.
To account for. So we're probably in the ballpark of about 1,800 to 1,900, assuming not accounting for LCQ winners.
20 LCQ winners, pretty small number, right?
No, they'll fire them. They'll keep firing them, and if they have the space in the main event, they'll keep firing them until the closing on Friday. So I know it's different at every RC basically. Like, because if they don't fire, for example, then they just don't fire. There won't be an LCQ qualifier from that time slot. But they do. I know, like at the first one in Atlanta, they did them like on demand. And then I think in like Denver more recently, they weren't on demand events.
Oh.
But it's difficult to say. But it's gonna be a long tournament.
For heads up for you and for everybody listening before RC, Dallas. In the creator Discord and I think on Twitter, it was mentioned how this is the biggest DreamHack event ever. So this is going to be a big event of like for probably walking through and getting to the magic section.
Yes.
So plan ahead for
Yeah.
walking through big crowds.
If you can pick your badges up on Thursday this time.
Yes.
I would probably recommend doing that, especially if you're LCQing. Or you just want to enjoy DreamHack more on Friday, because those lines can be killer on Friday. I imagine the Thursday lines will still be bad, but like
it's a walk in the park if you go a day early. Every time I picked up my badge a day early, it's just like I'm in and out probably 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's the case, but I kind of doubt it.
Yeah.
DreamHack lines especially are not fantastic.
The
but
lines if you're in there, like, and I think even if you're in line on Friday to get in first thing, you're waiting forever.
Oh yeah,
I'm lucky enough where every time I've gone, security sees the creator badge on me, like, oh, you go this way, and there's another line for creators.
Yep, it must be nice. Must be nice. You don't have to dog it out with the plebs. But yeah, I'm excited for the RC. Have yet to settle on what I'm gonna play. I think I've narrowed it down to Esper, Golgari, or Azorius.
Probably.
Either way, the reason I played that Analyst matchup so many times yesterday was I just really wanted to figure out like the play patterns that actually result in beating that deck.
Yeah.
And if there's any specific cards that drastically help improve it. And I think I found a few tricks for Golgari that we might talk about some other time outside of the podcast, but before Dallas. But I think it'd be a very interesting. It'd be very interesting to see what I land on. Because right now I'm kind of divided, and then I'm excited. Whatever deck I play, though, I'm actually just really excited to play the RC.
Weekend full of just magic general. Sounds fun.
Yeah. So I'm sad. There's gonna be so much free monster that I can't drink.
I will.
So sad about it.
OD on monster, but not really. I won't.
Yeah.
I'll have.
I mean, they would let you. I remember the last time I was there, they were making me two fist them. They were they just weren't letting me say no, but well, saved me from myself. But yeah, it'll be difficult this time. But yeah, in either case, I'm looking forward to it. But why don't we move on from standard? We've got a new set coming out pretty quickly, 3 weeks from now, actually.
Yeah, we can move
very
on.
fast.
We can move on over to that.
Yeah, we're going to talk Modern Horizons 3, a little bit about Modern, and then we'll talk a little more about Timeless as well, because that's going to impact us arena gamers. Absolutely. And if there's any cards you want us to review specifically, send them to us.
Yeah.
In the Discord. We'll talk about them.
Or add us on Twitter.
Absolutely. I always respond on Twitter, just not immediately, because I don't always look at my Twitter.
You responded more in depth than I do, too. Like, you responded to somebody with a whole paragraph of a reason for why of no Sheldred in a card. But
yes,
I'm in my response on Twitter be like, if I would respond, that would have been just like, not good. Hostile Investigator better.
Yeah, well, it's more nuanced than that,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the problem with that conversation, and you could easily be reductive about it, because like that was basically the end conclusion, is that we just could play a better card. But it's like, it's not that Sheldred's bad and anybody would fault you for playing it. It's that it's not as good. Like you could do better. Yeah. Is the phrase that's been coming up a lot in testing.
I actually wouldn't respond that. If anybody's like, if you're curious, I would not respond like that. I was just joking around kind of thing. But I wouldn't respond as detailed as John would.
Yes, but I will always answer your questions. Always happy to. So, of course, speaking of socials, you can find us on most social media platforms at CardWard Pod, where you can see whenever our new episodes come out, as well as you can interact with us there. You can also find us at our own socials. course, you're what is it at Jaffer and
Uh,
TG, or is it at Jaffer TV?
on Twitch, I'm Jaffer,
Jaffer.
Jaffer. Everywhere else, I'm Jaffer TTV. So be sure to come find me if you want to hang out with us when like live. John's been on more frequently. He's me on tonight. Uh,
Yes.
that'll be yesterday once you listen to this. But you can go back and watch the VOD if you want to watch us work on stuff live,
Yes. Please do.
sort of. But yeah, it's always a great time. So be sure to follow us, subscribe to the channel here. John, where can they find you?
You can find me at SaltiestGaijin, just like you see on your screen. You can find me on any social media platform using that,
Uh,
except the ones that are not the ones I want to be on.
if you see an icon above his head, you can find him there.
Yes.
We might make a TikTok account and post maybe some clips from our podcast, and maybe we'll do, like as we mentioned, maybe do some YouTube shorts. We might post over there too. I know like TikTok is lacking in non-commander magic content. Um,
Yeah, it's a lot of casual, not a commander.
Nothing wrong with that at all. It's
Oh
just
no, just
the
not our demo.
yeah, but yeah, it was pretty fun talking about all this today, like all the new cards, talking about the RC. Um,
Yeah.
Just again, if you ever want to hear more of us, let us know. Like so far, this is just me a once a month kind of thing. Yeah.
We would happily do it more if the people demand it. Absolutely, and love doing these podcasts. Love hanging out with Jaffer while we talk Magic and play Magic. So of course, always happy to be here to entertain all of you folks. But that's going to be it for us for this episode of the podcast.
Yes.
So if you have, again, just like last time, any feedback you'd like to leave us, where can they leave that?
You can leave that in the Discord server. There is a section, my Discord server. There's a section called the CardWard Podcast or CardWard. There's a feedback channel and just a general chat channel if you want to talk to us about anything. You can also add us on Twitter at CardWard Pod. You can comment on this as well on YouTube, or you can add us individually. Whatever works. Also, if you would like to talk to us in person, we are both going to be at DreamHack Dallas for the RC.
Yes.
I won't be competing. But I'll be doing content creator stuff, maybe playing some side events. I'll have stickers for my content, just to get in a handout. We unfortunately don't have anything like officially made yet for our podcast, but feel free to come up to us, talk to us, say hi. Like obviously,
shout out to the viewer that came up to me in Indianapolis.
oh yeah, he told me about that.
Yeah,
He came in my
came up
stream
and
the other day and was like, "Hey, I met John."
yes, I'm always happy to meet you in person. If you want to come up and say hi, I'll be playing in the main event, DreamHack Dallas, as well as I'll be walking around the convention on Friday and hopefully not on Sunday. But so of course, if you see me, feel free to come up and say hi. Always happy to chat with any of our viewers.
With that, thank you for watching. We'll see or listening. We'll see you or in the next episode.
See you then.